If you're in Minnesota or Colorado right now, you have a rare opportunity to smell the flowers, though you may not want to. And the reason you may want to skip the sniff and sit this one out is a weird science fact that boggles my mind. The Amorphophallus titanum, also called the Titanarum, I think I got my Greek right on that, or is it Latin, is the largest unbranched inflorescent in the world. If you're like me and have no idea what that means, it's a flower that like clusters around something phallus shaped, hence the name. And these big phallic flowers are corium flowers or corpse flowers, which should be giving you a little bit of an inclination as to why you might want to skip the scratch and sniff on this one. I'm gonna keep calling this thing the corpse flower because the other names are too hard, but the corpse flower, in addition to being the largest inflorescent unbranched thingamabob flower in the world, it also has the largest crom in the world, which is like a fancy word for a underground stem root system. Bulbotuber might be something you're more familiar with. Sort of looks like a big potato. Anyway, its bulbotuber big potato root stem thing can weigh over 250 pounds, and it uses its big bulbotuber to store up energy for when it's time to get hot and heavy with another Tim Burton botanical. As I'm sure you're aware, flowers are just flora-fornication. While most flowers are all about the sexy time every spring, the corpse flower is a late bloomer. It takes 7 to 10 years before it spreads its petals for the first time, and then once it does, it only flowers every 2 to 4 years. Well, that certainly seems like long dry spells in between times this flower gets frisky. You'd probably put off getting it on too if your tube steak or tuna taco smelled like rotting meat every time you took it out. Because that's exactly the odor that's off-put when the corpse flower. See, each corpse flower pollinates with both male and female flowers that bloom a few days apart so it doesn't get all Alabama up in there and self-pollinate. And while most flowers are out there with pretty colors and pleasant smells to help the birds and the bees spread their seeds, or pollen, I guess technically it's a weird analogy when you really think about it. Because like, they still have seeds and that's a different part of the process, but like when we go out and do it, we're spreading our seed. Never mind. The corpse flower decided to take a different approach and went for the dead body eating beetles and flies. And while it's said you'll catch more flies with honey than vinegar, apparently roadkill turned out to be the best bait. So the corpse flower exudes the odor of, well, a corpse. And that attracts all the flesh-eating flies to help the flower fornicate with its corpse bride. I just realized that movie is sort of about necrophilia. But it doesn't just rely on its unfriendly fragrance to attract its flies. Its flowers bloom in a red color that replicates rotting meat as well. But I'm sure as you've all learned on a lonely weekend that just because you replicate the color and the smell, if you don't have the right temperature, it just doesn't feel quite real. But the corpse flower thought of that too, and it uses energy from its big bulbotuber to heat up its phallic flowers to over 90 degrees. But even with all of its tricks for reproduction, the corpse flower is still incredibly rare, relegated solely to the rainforests of western Sumatra. There's only about 1,000 plants left in the wild, and obviously there's no rainforests in Minnesota or Colorado, so how are its residents able to get a good sniff of that stank? Well, in my home state of Minnesota, we've got the Como Zoo and Conservatory, which is an amazing free zoo in St. Paul. And their conservatory just so happens to have one of these awfully aromatic flowers blooming for the first time today. And while that's probably a little far to cross-pollinate with Colorado State University's corpse flower, theirs started blooming yesterday as well. So if you want to catch a whiff of the corpse flower at Como Zoo or Colorado State, I highly recommend swinging by soon. And the fact that there's a flower whose fragrance fakes the fermenting food of a flesh fly so it can infrequently fornicate, second try. Well, that is pretty mind-boggling.